All right. Um, so what's good, everybody? Uh, we're back at we're not back in the same location, but we're on the second episode of the Love the Game podcast. I'm Ray,
I'm
and
Marco.
you know, we're about to start going crazy with this content. And today we're gonna really talk about the NBA Finals. um, just about the finals preview, also the Eastern Conference and Western Conference matchups, just giving our thoughts like what we observed. So let's start firstly with the Oklahoma City Thunder. Congrats to them. Um, Marco, what were some of your reactions and takeaways from the series against the Timberwolves?
I was pretty confident the Thunder would win going into it, but the dominance which they displayed was pretty surprising to me. I definitely thought that the games would be closer. I thought it was probably gonna be Thunder in six and ended up being Thunder in five.
Mhm.
And the one win that Minnesota had was pretty dominant, but I was just really impressed with J Dub and Chet in particular and how both of them like truly played like stars because I feel like we didn't really see that throughout the Denver series. They had games here and there, but it wasn't like as consistent as it was versus Minnesota. They both truly stepped up and played like elite players.
Yeah, I mean, similar to you, it really felt like at times, I mean, even though there like the scoreboard says that there were a lot of blowouts, I feel like even though the Wolves fought their hardest, the Thunder is just they're too good both ways. You could see that just in roster comparisons, like the Thunder had way more options to choose from than the Timberwolves. I feel like they really played to Ant-Man's weaknesses really well. They really made him look not not less than average, but like they definitely mitigated what he's good at, and they made him play above his pace, if that makes sense. So I mean, I was really impressed just with how young they are, firstly, and then just how dominant they were. Same thing that you said, Chet Holmgren, J-Dub, they definitely stepped up from their previous series. And honestly, like I didn't know if they would play better this series because it feels like, from my point of view, that the Timberwolves have interesting wing defenders, right? Like Jaden McDaniels, Ant is I think is also a good two-way player. Nickeil Alexander Walker is another one. So like I also Dante DiVincenzo, I think he's an underrated defender, low key. So yeah, I it was really good. It was really interesting to see that a young team like the Thunder, they played experienced basketball. They looked older than what they actually were, and I think that was a huge key to them beating Minnesota.
Yeah, definitely. The regular season dominance definitely showed this time. I didn't even feel like I was watching like a good team versus like I know people love to tear down the team that loses and like call them a fraud and say they got exposed. I
Yeah,
didn't feel like I was watching it. I felt like I was watching a good team versus a historically great team,
yeah,
and
yeah.
they showed it this series.
Yeah. So what do you think? Because I kind of see this season as a success for the Timberwolves, mainly because, they retooled their roster. They got rid of Karl Anthony Towns for Julius Randle. I honestly didn't think they would make it this far this fast. But you know how the playoffs work. Sometimes teams make it. Um,
Mhm.
and we saw that this year. We saw Julius Randle honestly take a leap, kind of looking like how he was in New York that first season, um the Timberwolves offseason this year.
Yeah, it's gonna be tricky because really because of three guys for me. So Julius Randle has a player option for
Yeah,
like
yeah,
$30 million. Then Naz Reid has a player option for 15. And then Nickeil Alexander Walker is an unrestricted free agent after making like a little bit over 4 million this year.
yeah,
And based on their situation, it's hard to imagine, well, it's impossible to imagine that they bring all three back based on like the money I expect them to make.
yeah. I agree.
Um, and based on the cat trade, it gets really tricky too because my belief was that the cat trade was to try to keep the team under the second apron.
Hmm.
And if they want to resign two of the three, they're really not going to be able to do that. I wouldn't be surprised that based on the success they had this season and making it to the conference finals, that they are willing to go into the second apron for this team.
Hmm.
But I'm not sure. And I think what it comes down to is what happens with Julius Randle's market because I can easily see Julius Randle. going somewhere and making a lot of money, whether that be Minnesota or somewhere else on a longer term deal. But I
Yeah,
can also see him opting into his player option for one more year at $30 million if his market isn't what they thought it is. Because I was really sitting there and looking at all the teams that I thought had big money that they could spend on a Julius Randle,
yeah,
whether it be like the Nets or like somebody else. And honestly, it didn't really make sense for me to envision like the Nets or the Pistons or a
yeah,
team like that throwing Julius Randle a longer term deal.
yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised if he just sticks it out one more year on a player option where it's not like he's not making a lot of money. I'm not sure in an open market how much Julius Randle commands right now because of how tricky NBA contract starts.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You got more picky with who you give a max to, and there's not much of the middle ground anymore. So I don't know what his market's going to look like. Wouldn't be surprised if he opts in the player option. And this was something I wasn't even considering at first, but then I was actually watching another YouTuber named AVC, and he brought up like, what if he opts in and made some really good points. So I thought that was something to think about. And then the other thing is how much does Nas Reed command in the open market?
Yes,
Because I
yes.
believe Nickeil Alexander Walker probably gets like a full mid-level exception from a team, whether it be like 8 to 12 million, depending on if they're like taxpayer or not. So I think it would be impossible for them to retain both Nas and Nickeil Alexander Walker, but they had both of their bird rights, so they could resign them both for pretty much whatever they want. And based on their roster right now, I would think that they choose Nas Reed over Nickeil Alexander Walker,
Mm,
which I originally didn't believe. I actually took notes saying I believe they keep Nickeil, but I'm gonna have to walk that take back. I think they probably keep Nas because he's more of a rare archetype, and he didn't have the best playoffs ever, but he did shoot pretty efficiently. And it was just the scoring that went down and he turned the ball over too much. But it's a small sample size. Like I don't put too much stock into it. You could see players like change their reputation as a playoff performer like all the time based
literally,
on the
literally.
next playoffs.
Yeah, it's based on
And
the
I think they just got like Terrence Shannon who's able to step into this role and like the Nickeil Alexander Walker role. So I
yeah,
think he's a little bit more expendable to that team. To make this work, I do think they would have to move off Mike Conley, who's got like 1 year, about 10 million left on the contract. And I'm not sure that wasn't the plan all along because it was kind of weird to me on draft night last year where they gave up multiple first round picks to trade into the top 10 to draft Rob Dillingham,
yeah.
like a really, really small guard. And I'm not surprised he didn't play much this year. He's really tiny and still pretty young. But I think he'll be ready to step into like a Mike Conley bench role next year. So I think they probably are able to retain Julius and Nas, but have to let Nickeil walk and trade Mike Conley in the process. What about you?
Yeah, so like kind of similarly to you. I think the Wolves, their main priority this offseason has to be to retain Nas Reed. I think he's gonna command a lot of money this offseason. I see Golden State, I think is trying to offer him something. I saw Houston saying that they could offer him something. Depending on like how they move next year, and this is something that we could talk about in our next segment, like New York might be able to make a move potentially. I don't really know. But like I feel like yeah, the Timberwolves they need to prioritize re-signing Nas Reed. He's a very versatile big man. I think he can push the ball very well. He can play make at a low or at a solid level that you want a big man to play at, excuse me. Um and in terms of Julius Randle, I feel like with Julius Randle it's kind of like an up and down for me. I think it's a low risk, high reward if you keep him on a player option this year. But I do question like if you try to give him a long-term deal because of how he's played in the playoffs in like his playoff history. Not to say that he's a bad player, but I think in terms of getting Anthony Edwards to the next level, I think you need to have like a more off-ball player, kind of similarly to Cat, but just a guy who can take that pressure off. And I mean, when they kill Alexander Walker, I think they're also gonna let him walk. I think he was a very pivotal piece with the Timberwolves these past 2 years. And it's gonna be really interesting to see which teams actually want to make a chance or actually want to make a pitch for Nikhil on their team. But I do think he's definitely going to command some money this offseason as well. Because even though like his stats aren't the best, aren't the greatest, I still feel like on small sample sizes, in split minutes, he can be a very pivotal player in a series. Also, just he can change the series with his defensive abilities. So yeah, so that's just kind of like what I think about what they'll do. Obviously, it's the NBA. Anything can happen. Um, and so yeah, I guess we can move on to the Knicks and the Pacers. So we saw yesterday that the Knicks they fired Tom Thibodeau. I'm not surprised by that at all. I do want to actually go through a couple of his achievements with the Knicks. This season, Tom Thibodeau went 51 and 31, had a 10 and 8 postseason. And of all time, he has a 226 and 174 record in 5 seasons with the Knicks. He's also made four out of his 5 years. He's made the playoffs 4 times out of his 5 years, and that only season was the 21-22 season. And now he's been the coach to lead the Knicks to their first conference finals appearance since the 1999 2000 season. Um, so like I said, I'm not really surprised that the Knicks let go of Tibbs just given their history. Do you feel like shock or are you feeling the same way as me?
I kind of expected it. Like I kind of felt like going into the series that they, I felt as though that my prediction was that they would win in like a tight series, like 6 or 7 games.
Mm,
Even though like the net rating in the playoffs was like a negative 0.1 going into the series, which is like not indicative of a conference finals team. And the Pacers, it felt like we're just the better team, like game in and game out. It felt like to me,
yeah,
and like that reflected as they won the series in 6 games. So I'm not surprised that they felt the need to make a move like that. I've been pretty critical of Tips throughout the years, whether it be like his lack of utilization as the bench, which I feel is like wears down the starters, especially in the regular season, especially when I felt as though he had some bench pieces that he could play more. But I'm not sure that this firing was fair to him, if I'm being 100% honest, because I don't know how many coaches out there really could have gotten more defensively out of a team that put both Cat and Jalen Brunson on the court. Because in their own right, they're both fantastic players, both made second team All NBA. I made my All NBA teams like myself as well. I had them both on my second team. Wait, no, second and third team. Cat did make third team.
got you,
Um,
got you. That's
yeah.
cool.
Um, I had them both second team, and then I dropped Cat to third team as well at like the last second. That's why I got it confused. So I
Yeah,
had the same thing as the NBA did. Both All NBA players, fantastic players. But when you're playing two players who were objectively two of the worst defenders in the playoffs this year, it's kind of tricky against an elite offensive team who will hunt that mismatch and like kind of expose them. And when it's a point guard and a big, you're able to like put them both in action and like you saw them just like down the stretch of game 6 getting easy buckets on the pick and roll every time. Just Halliburton attacking Cat and
yeah,
hitting people cutting to the rim. We're hitting like Miles Turner on a roll, hitting Obi Toppin on a roll, just exposing that mismatch. And I thought I will say, I do gotta give Tibbs credit for going to the double big lineup. I have a roommate who's a Knicks fan, and as soon as they signed Cat, he's like, "Oh, we got like somebody that's going like guard." And then he's like naming like the great centers, like naming them B because I'm a Sixers fan. Like I'm like, bro, I'm not 100% sure that it's not in your best interest to start him with Mitchell Robinson because
yeah,
of how detrimental of a defender he is and how he can space the floor. So it's not like it's gonna hurt your space and to play a double big when your best shooter is probably Cat.
yeah,
And he ended up doing that in the series, and that lineup worked really well for him. He benched Brunson during some stretches of the series, which I was surprised about because it takes a lot of balls to bench your best player. But it like Brunson, I have it written down here, was a negative 1.4 net rating in the playoffs. So they were like losing the Brunson minutes. And a lot of that is because it would be like Cat, no Mitchell Robinson, and they would just get
yeah,
killed defensively. But part of that is because Brunson probably was the worst defender in the playoffs. It's a little bit easier to hide a guard, especially when you're as fantastic as he is offensively, because he might have also had the best offensive playoffs. But it wasn't like the lineups where Brunson was out there was absolutely killing. So I do feel a little bit bad for Tips because I don't know what other coach could have did better than him given the circumstances.
Yeah, I mean, like I definitely feel bad for Tibbs because I feel like this was a losing battle, kind of like since the playoffs. I remember there is a big conversation amongst Knicks fans about how I forget what the record was exactly, but they lost most of their games against top or against 500 or above teams, right?
It was like 1-7, I
They
think.
were like they were
Yeah,
like
it
one of
was
the
like the
worst
top three
teams.
teams
Yeah,
in the
they
NBA.
were like the worst team in that stat. So
Yeah,
that raised a lot of questions about Tibbs in terms of coaching against big teams. Now, them, I think beating Boston, especially the way that they did, was historic. You know what I mean?
yeah,
You come
definitely.
down, you beat Boston in the Garden down 20 like back-to-back games. That's like that feels like an impossible type of task, you know what I mean? I know certainly the Sixers wouldn't do that, you know?
Oh, I didn't think the Knicks would be able to do it either.
Yeah, I didn't think the Knicks would be able to do something like that either. So, like, I feel like that feat was definitely like, even though it was so great, it was such a huge feat.
Mhm.
Nothing would have changed the result because also like kind of like what you were saying earlier. In order to beat the Celtics, Tibbs still played Tibbs ball. You know what I mean? He still stuck to his men. And then when they played Indiana, he completely changed his game plan. But the problem was is that the Indiana Pacers just their offense is too good that they took advantage of all of those I guess like the bench guys that weren't used to that playoff type of
Mhm.
intensity, you know what I mean? Um so yeah, like it's really complicated. Um Shout out Tom Thibodeau. Definitely changed New York basketball for the better. As much as I don't like the Knicks now, shout out the Knicks. When the Knicks are good, when the Celtics are good, when the Lakers are good, when the Sixers are good, it's better for basketball. It's better for the league. With that being said, we can also go into like the Pacers. Firstly, shout out the Pacers. There's a lot of guys on there that I think are insanely underrated. Insanely underrated. So I think like a couple guys that I really like this series. Um, I think a notable one obviously is Tyrese Halliburton. He's the engine for the Pacers. He averaged 18 points per eight. He's been averaging 18.8 points per game, excuse me, 19.8 assists, 1.4 steals, and 5.7 rebounds. I also want to give a shout out game one, Aaron Nesmith. That was an insane game. Um, Andrew Nemhard's another player that I want to give a huge shout out to. 12.8 points per game. And he has the fourth lowest defensive rating on Indy, which is I think is good in terms of defensive rating. So he's guarding the best players and he still has one of the lower defensive ratings. So shout out to Andrew Nemhard. He kind of reminded me of he kind of reminds me of like Andre Iguodala, but like a better shot. You know what I mean? And then another guy, Ben Shepherd. I really like Ben Shepherd. He's a really good defensive player who can make an impact in split minutes. I'm really excited to see how he plays. And then also shout out to Pascal Siakam, who I think is just definitely redefining his own narrative, you know. Um, and honestly, like he might come into his own in this playoffs. It'll be really interesting to see what he does. But Marco, who are some players that you like on the Indiana Pacers?
Yeah, I was impressed with both Thomas Bryant and Tony Bradley as well.
Oh
I
yeah.
thought both of them giving very confident backup center minutes. Shout out Tony Bradley, Sixers legend, by the way.
Sixers
Um,
legend on
I
God, on
thought both of
God.
them giving a confident backup minutes was very important to the team. I wanted to expand on Ben Shepherd a little bit. He had a 3.5 net rating in the playoffs, which is really good. That's all you could like ask for with your with like a bench guard at that point. Is just like keep things afloat, and he did more than that. They were winning his minutes by a significant amount, and like you said, like it's not going to show up on the stat sheet. They're obviously not going to run the offense through Ben Shepherd, but he was
Yeah,
out there. He made things tough on Jalen Brunson as
yeah,
much as you could expect him to. Just another body to throw at him. Um, and yeah, definitely Nemhard. I knew he was great, like in his role, great. Fantastic job defending Brunson. I was very impressed with Neesmith defending Brunson. His screen navigation was ridiculous. I've
yep,
watched a lot of Pacers games because I really do like Tyrese Halliburton. I think um the way he creates efficient offense for himself and others is like super underrated. Like I definitely had him on my All NBA third team, like very deservedly. And I think he's like one of the more underrated players in the league. Definitely one of the more like fun players in the league to
I
watch.
agree. I
Well,
agree.
I'm not sure if he's getting underrated anymore because I think people are like finally actually like watching the games in the playoffs and they're like
Game
actually
one was
understanding.
definitely like his statement game for sure, and it made everybody
Yeah,
know.
yeah. I don't know. It what I'm finding is like in the playoffs, it's not really like changing like the player rankings in my head though, because I
Yeah,
watched so much regular season that like they kind of showed me what they are, and then
yeah,
now it's like I'm kind of getting what I expect, if that makes sense. Like you
nah,
know what I mean? Like so
yeah,
it's like I expected this from Tyrese Halliburton, and I'm not like blown away. Like I thought he was probably like around like the 12th best player in the league this season, coming into the playoffs, and like in the playoffs he's kind of looked like that, maybe a little bit better. So I'm not really that surprised. Like I think he's just a fantastic player. Like people underrate how much efficiency and being able to push the pace because transition you get like the most efficient looks, like how important that is. And he's the best at doing that in the league right now, like pushing the pace
yeah,
and he didn't even shoot efficiently in the series, but like still created efficient offense, like whether it be driving
yeah.
kick, yeah,
It
all
felt
that.
like even in the games where like he didn't have 20 points, he at least had around like 9, 10 assists.
Yeah,
He made sure he made sure if I wasn't doing that, if I wasn't scoring, I was facilitating. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
he
he's
made
ridiculous.
sure to do that. Like and to your point too, I don't know if you remember we were talking in the group chat that one time. Shout out Durin because we had a debate about Shea. We can honestly like transition into the finals too. Like we
Mm-hmm.
were talking about Shea and Hallie, and how which one was better, right? I was for
Wait, when was this?
this was like, bro, I want to say this is around like 2022.
Okay, okay. I was gonna say this couldn't be recently. 2022, that would make
I think
sense.
it was
Yeah.
before he got traded to the Pacers.
Okay, that would make sense because he has been a big Hallie fan. I wasn't as big of a Hallie fan at first, but I was always a
Yeah.
pretty big Shea
Yeah, and
fan.
I remember he was like, "Nah, bro, like, nah, Tyrese Halliburton is that guy, what blah 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 blah." And I was like, "Man, stop it, man. Shea is him, whatever." So like when he got traded to Indiana, they're playing the Sixers like a lot. So I'm seeing him develop into like the guy that he is now. So the fact that he's like they give him the underrated label was kind of crazy because
The
I remember,
overrated one, like the players pool.
yeah, yeah,
That
yeah.
shit blew me,
Like
bro. My
that was
my roommate
crazy.
was sending me that. It's like your guy's most overrated. I'm like, bro, that's probably only the Bucks players voting on it.
Yeah, yeah, literally. Like, cause I remember the one game, dude, Maxi, I remember he played the Sixers. Maxi had a crazy game against him, and then he came back and dropped like I want to say, I I want to say, did Maxi have 50 that game?
That was Maxi's first 50 ball because I remember
And
I
then
was on Twitter trolling Ren. I was like, oh my God, we
yeah,
got the best Tyrese. I didn't believe that, but I
yeah,
had to like go
and
support
then
my
and
guy.
then he came back and he did something crazy. I remember I was like, ooh.
Yeah.
I was like, dang, like
It was the NBA Cup and they beat us. I
yeah,
forget
yeah,
exactly what he
yeah,
did,
yeah,
but
yeah,
yeah, I
yeah,
remember they
yeah,
beat us in the NBA Cup. I
yeah.
was because I did want to win that.
I think then that's when I knew I was like, okay, he might be kind of legit. Like, because I wasn't really sure with the Pacers when they made it to the Eastern Conference Finals last year. Just because like injuries, whatnot. And also like because they played the Knicks last year and I was just like, man, I don't know. I wasn't sure yet, but I think yeah, they've proven to a lot of people that they're here to stay and they're kind of like the future of the East. I can't lie. Um, and so now we're talking about the East, the West. Finals preview. My boy, who do you have winning the finals?
I go OKC. I think they're just too good. I think this is really a historically great team that we're going to look back on for like the rest of our lives. So I've been rooting for them. I've been rooting for both of these teams. I really like both the rosters, both very deep, likable stars that I enjoy watching. Game prediction. I'll say six because I do think OKC is better. Their shooting can get pretty streaky. And I do think they'll probably have some like games where they shoot less than 30% from three. And the Pacers are a fantastic shooting team. So they'll probably have games where they shoot like 40% from three. So I think shot variance sounds disrespectful, but like shot variance their way into a couple wins because I don't think they're the better team, but I think they can just shoot better a couple games and get some wins there.
Yeah.
So I think it's probably six game series, but I don't know. This is gonna be a fun finals. I really like both of these teams. I'd be happy either way. I like
Yeah, no, to your point, I'd be happy either way too. I think as of now, I have the Thunder. I think also in six. However, like I wouldn't be surprised if the Pacers kind of like shock a lot of people because I think the Pacers can play into their strength of just moving the ball. And and like I think in order for any team to beat the Pacers, I know I said this last episode, you have to keep them within that 100 point range. And that's really hard to do, I think, with the Indiana Pacers. Because I think the games that they lost against New York, because I've been tracking it, the game they lost against Cleveland, I think they held them to below 100. I think it was like 90. I don't know if it was like 96 or 90. I'm kind of blanking right now. Let me check.
Yeah, I can pull it up. Against the one they lost against Cleveland,
Yeah, the one they lost against Cleveland, they
they
scored.
had 104 in the one game. Is that the one you're talking about?
Yeah. And
Yeah,
then they
104. So
lost
yeah,
against the
that's
Knicks.
still pretty low.
They lost against the Knicks.
Where's the second loss against the Knicks? 194 were the point totals they had
Oh wow.
in
Okay,
the loss against the Knicks.
I'm tripping. So yeah, like I think you got to keep the Pacers within 100. Um, I think Lou Dort is going to be someone that is a key player for the Thunder because he doesn't shoot as well as their other starters. I expect Tyrese Halliburton to be guarding him as well as Lou Dort to be guarding Tyrese Halliburton. So I really think that Lou Dort is going to be a player that has to just be a consistent shooter. I think J Dub has to be a consistent second option because we know Shea is gonna do what he's gonna do. He's probably gonna get 25 to 30, 7 assists at least, you know. He just
I feel like
needs
he's gonna
other
eat this
players.
series. I really feel like he's gonna eat this series.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Especially like and I can and we'll get into the flip side on the Pacers. Um, so he needs to be another player that needs to assist Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. Um, and let me see if I have another player. And also the OKC bigs, just to limit boards. I think with a team like the Indiana Pacers, they thrive off of chaos and getting offensive rebounds. I'm a big proponent in saying like if you're giving up offensive rebounds, you're probably going to lose the playoff game. So I really can't stress enough that Chet Holmgren and Isaiah Hartenstein just need to grab the ball like at any like as soon as possible. So on the flip side for the Pacers, some key players that I'm looking for, um, honestly, is the wing defense with Nemhard and Neesmith on SGA because he's so unguardable. Um, and also the game plan against SGA. Miles Turner, I think, just needs to be a paint defender. I don't really think he needs to be outside because he'll be exposed defensively. So I think if he can just use his length in the paint, I think that would be a key to winning a couple games and maybe potentially flipping the series.
Yeah. I definitely agree with the last person you brought up, Miles Turner. Mine is a little bit for a different reason though. Mine in the Knicks series, game one, 5 rebounds, game two, three, game three, four, game four, three, and then
Uh,
game five, two, and game six, two. He's gonna need to rebound the ball more than that against this team.
yeah,
Because with the double big lineup, they're going to get killed on the glass if you're not getting more rebounding from your center. And I know they do a good job team rebounding, like Pascal bring them in, Hallie will bring them in, Nemar, like Neesmith, they all rebound well. But when your guy whose primary matchup is going to be probably Isaiah Hartenstein, who's going to bring in a lot of rebounds, like you're going to need him to be competitive on the boards and not just get absolutely destroyed on the boards. And I know he's a stretch, so you can't expect many offensive boards from him because he's going to be out on the perimeter. But defensively, he is a rim protector, so he is around the rim, and he's not a guy who I like see over helping a lot. So he usually is in a pretty good position to grab rebounds. So I'm going to need more out of him on that. But I don't know. I feel like OKC is just. I feel like they rebound too well. I feel like their defense, like it's gonna be hard for the Pacers to hunt mismatches because there really aren't any. Like they got 5 guys out there who defend.
yeah.
It's just tough. Other players that I have in mind though. I think Aaron Wiggins. I want to see him shoot the ball pretty efficiently too. Because I agree with what you said about Lou Dort, but I do see a situation where Lou Dort just doesn't shoot the ball well enough for them to justify having him on the floor.
Yeah, I
And
get
I
that.
think at that
Yeah.
point they do pivot to Aaron Wiggins because he's better defender than Isaiah Joe. Not as good of a shooter, but he is a very confident shooter, very good shooter. So
Yeah.
I think he'll have to knock down shots. I think the people in the Thunder's bench are going to have to knock down 3 pointers because how fast the Pacers play and stuff. And not only do 3 pointers put like or made shots, put points on the board for you, they make it harder for the other team to get out in transition. So the more efficient offense OKC plays will make it harder for the Pacers to get in to push the pace in offense. And they still do it. Like Halliburton will get the inbound pass and push it up the floor and stuff. But it's definitely way harder than if they're grabbing a rebound. Pascal Siakam's already in transition like he was for all the last series, like just eating like on easy fast break points.
Yeah. And like before we leave, one more thing I wanted to just point out also is just I'm really interested to see how OKC kind of tries to break that press that Indiana does,
Mm-hmm.
specifically with Andrew Nemhard and Ben Shepherd. Because I feel like, they're really good at putting pressure on those guards, on their opposing guards. I don't know if Shea has a little trick up his sleeve because he always has something. So it's going to be really interesting to see if they don't do it game one, when will they start to initiate that game plan and how OKC will respond to that.
Yeah, I feel
Also,
like
sorry,
if I'm them,
my
I feel like
dog
you
is
have to
barking,
do
so
it.
sorry if you could hear that.
Oh, you good? I can hear it. I feel like they probably should go to the press early, right, to try to wear Shea down because
That
the
makes
press
sense.
with the push and the pace combination, like that's gonna make it hard for Shea. Like try to get him like a little bit tired. I don't know. It's so interesting having both of these teams out there where they have like multiple people that can like handle the ball and create offense for their
Yeah,
team. I know like the new like buzzword is like pass, dribble, shoot, defend. Like for role
yeah,
players, it's like we're
yeah.
like pass 3 and D where you need them to be able to do a little bit more because of how good players are. And just the amount of like pass, dribble, shoot, defend players that both of these teams have is just amazing. I think it's gonna be a really fun finals. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too, man. I think it's beautiful for basketball. So before we sign off, we wanna thank everybody for tuning in. Shout out, love the game. Follow us, love the game pod. We're everywhere. We're gonna try to crank out more content. More episodes based on the finals. Hopefully, we can get more going. Marco, you got anything else you want to say before we dip?
No, just thank you to everybody that tuned in, especially people that made it to the end. I appreciate you.
Hey, don't forget to leave some questions. We want to engage with y'all, man. So please, man, we're looking forward to it. So yeah, have a good one. Thank y'all, man. Thank y'all.